I love these conversations because it's so important. Like, and through these conversations, I love the term relational mysticism, right? It's we are relating with each other, and that like through this relationality, we're actually finding God, or we're finding this deeper sense of unity within ourselves. I've grown way more careful with this, and this is why I love sort of that like retracing the golden thread. This is sort of the difference, what I'm feeling between my path at the moment and what I'm helping people to find and feel and embody, and the more new age spiritual path, which is in the spiritual path, the new agey path. It's still about performance. It's still about I don't feel worthy enough. I need to do X, Y, Z to get somewhere.
As this series has been going on, these last two have been quite Christian based, but I still think it's really, there's so many golden nuggets in this podcast for everybody. And I like to, part of this channel is broaden people's worldviews and really like just encourage people to have an open mind and to not just switch off and think, oh, this isn't for me because he's just mentioned Jesus, or this isn't for me because they're talking about divine feminine. Oh God, it's women in floaty skirts again. Through my studies, because of my reading is so slow, I access a lot of stuff on YouTube and I let it pop up. Sometimes you're like, oh no, and I could easily switch off, and I meet a challenge for some reason and I think, no, this is probably the one that I should dig into because it has some learning for me. That is...
Yeah.
You're just getting all those aspects and those fractals and perspectives, and that is what I think is key. You have like a real sort of a way of lasering in with real clarity and easy to understand. That's I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so fantastic. We had the lovely Reverend Mel for last week's discussion, Divine Feminine discussion, and she nominated, I've got a terrible frog in my throat, she nominated her dear friend Felix, and Felix has agreed to be here with us today. Welcome, Felix, and I know nothing about you other than you're gorgeous, and one thing I do know, which I'm interested to talk about with you, is get your sense. Mel spoke about you very much balancing not only the divine feminine, but with the divine masculine. So that's something hopefully we can touch on today. But yeah, would you like to say a bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Grace. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
It's always difficult for me to introduce myself because there's so many ways and so many angles depending on who I'm speaking to, in the sense of how I want to introduce myself. But I'd say overall, I'm coming from this more medical kind of background, right? I'm a trained physician assistant, and then I did a training called Heilpraktiker in Germany, which is sort of like a holistic practitioner training, holistic health practitioner training. And that is sort of my professional background. I'm specialized in the nervous system and trauma resolution. That's sort of my professional background, and sort of my personal background. I'm coming from a more, let's call it esoteric, new agey background, which started in 2016, around that time. Before I was already sort of a very philosophical person. I grew up listening to Eckhart Tolle. Maybe you know him, like Power of Now and stuff. My dad always told me about him and played CDs of him, and they taught me how to meditate and breathe properly.
They've given you a good foundation in life.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice, definitely. I'm very grateful for my parents. They did a quite good job in that. And then I transitioned deeper, sort of moved deeper into the new age, and like got a Reiki healer as well, and I had my own crystal shop for a while. And then eventually all of this sort of crumbled again in 2021, and I slowly but surely, not in a very abrupt way, but I found myself coming more into a Christian faith. I wouldn't necessarily call myself sort of a Christian outrageously, saying like I'm a Christian, but definitely like Christian mysticism, people like Teresa of Avila, Meister Eckhart. These are people I resonate deeply with, and Meister Eckhart has been sort of my main opening back to the Christian faith. And then through my friend Melanie, I've sort of come deeper back into the roots where I'm actually coming from, like Catholicism. And I'm actually like a Roman Catholic, baptized. And right now, in sort of my career at the moment, I'm I'm trying this mad thing, which is bringing together faith and somatics. You know, faith and science, like nervous system and trauma work, and bringing this into the whole faith conversation and bringing them together, because I find that just having, say, like the sciencey stuff and nervous system stuff and trauma healing can be very dry and almost like, oh, the reason why I'm not a full-blown like therapist, or decided to go down that path. I'm like, no, there's more. Like, I need the mystical component as well, and like the more artistic component. And so I'm always alternating between, oh, I'm leaning a bit more to the side of science, and then a bit more to the side of like faith and spirituality. And I'm trying to find sort of the middle way here. Yeah. And yeah, on the other side as well, like faith without, like, especially like Christian faith, without somatics, without including the body, can be very mm, like there's something missing. Oftentimes, if you interpret the Bible from one point of view only, it can almost give you the sense of like the body, like the flesh is evil and you're fighting this war against the flesh. And that's where my somatic understanding comes in, because I find like the body is just as important as the spirit. It just needs to be in right relationship. And so that's where my work comes in. And that's where my work with Melanie, with there's something that we're working on, a signature program called the Rose and Sword, which is also about masculine and feminine dynamics. Yeah, this is where the work comes in. Right relationship with spirit and body or flesh. Yeah.
I would say, number one, that sounds absolutely fascinating, but number two, really timely. Yeah. The original, not many people know, but the original scientists, they were really Christian. They were really like, they were into God and Jesus and the Bible and going
Yeah.
to church, but they wanted to use their science was exploring the natural world and fathoming out what God had made. But science has gone full tilt to the materialist at the cost of getting rid of anything faith, Bible, anything unseen can't explain it, is just
Yeah.
so. This is beautiful to have the two merging back together, because that is the whole point, isn't it? It is the flesh and the material world, and the practical, and the what's the word, when you're the rational. But there is so much unseen, invisible, irrational, faith, supernatural. It's all part of the same thing, and it's been so divided and separated, and that is to the cost of our bodies and
Yeah.
our mental health and the way we can experience faith and soul and spirit. And yeah, you are bang on the money. Good.
Bang on the money. I love
Bang
your
on the
phrases here.
money. That's wow.
Almost.
This needs to. I'm hearing what you're saying. I just think this is really needed. And the somatic work, if anybody knows anything about somatics, if they don't, well, you need to come and find Felix and his course, really, because somatics is an amazing thing, isn't it? And we are in physical body, we are spirit in physical body.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Mm. And there are
And
so
for
many
anyone,
ailments and physical conditions that just don't need to be there, because
yeah.
it's things like somatics can help to heal that. Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone who's new to the term somatics, somatics just means basically the language of the body. And in particular, we're looking at the nervous system, because the nervous system is sort of the underlying, um, almost like, how shall I say it? like the thing that um, sort of navigates that. It's almost like the nervous system is making sure. That's not the way to say it. Like the nervous system is actually mm, like the thing that decides how you feel, how you think, what kind of sensations you experience, what behaviors you have, if you take action, or if you don't take action. All of this is determined by the state of your nervous system. So that's really at the basis level. Even your hormonal states are going hand in hand with the nervous system. So if we're talking about somatics, we're talking like soma means body in Greek, right? We are actually talking about the language of the body, and it speaks through sensations, right?
It makes me think that it's a little bit like the supernatural side of faith in the Bible, not the Bible, religion, I think, because it's an unseen. So this is an arm, and you've got a leg, and this is a head. They're physical things, and we know because we've done science that at school biology that we've got kidneys and a heart and certain organs. But then I think when it comes to the nervous system, it's a bit like you can't imagine it in your head. You're just thinking, what the dickens is that? And I think maybe that's interesting, actually, yeah, because that's like the faith, soul, spirit thing, and your nervous system is like really epically key component of your physical health, your mental health, your way you live your life. But people can't imagine quite what is that. They can imagine their veins and their arteries, but I bet nobody could imagine. I certainly can't. I can't picture in my head what is my nervous system. What does that look like? So yeah,
Mm,
there you go. There's a little nugget for you to work on.
yeah. I
You're
mean,
the science
just
man.
very simply said, what is your nervous system? So we're particularly speaking about the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic means it's happening on its own, basically. Like, for example, your breathing, your heart rate, you don't have to think about this, right? Your digestion, you don't have to think about, oh, well, I just ate something and now, well, you got to digest, right? Like stomach, come on. It's happening on its own, right? And so, very simply said, your autonomic nervous system is almost like a highway communicating from your brain to your body, and from your body to your brain. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. Like it's a information stream up and down. That's basically the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, especially. Yeah, and that's making sure like your tone of muscle, how your heart beat, like that, your heart rate, your blood pressure. Um, what else? Your digestion. All of it is actually determined by the state of your nervous system.
So it's like your inner Wi-Fi. You can't see it. You can't quite
Yeah,
explain
yeah,
it. You can kind of explain Wi-Fi, but if you really dig into Wi-Fi, you're like, how the hell does that work? How
yeah,
how
yeah.
does how does that charge that to that wirelessly? It's like that sort of thing, isn't it?
You could say that, yeah, as
Yeah.
an analogy.
Okay. Right. Interesting.
Let's go.
When I say divine feminine, what does that bring to mind for you?
Hmm. Interesting. It's a term that I used in my past a lot, and now I'm finding myself using it less. But still, I really honor that term.
And so
There's
can
just
you
no,
dig into that a little bit? You say it in your past, so is that because it's a more of a new age thing in that
yeah.
end of your life?
Um, It's not that I discredit the term. There's just so much. Like I spend loads of time. Like the main part of my business is on Instagram, right? And there's this whole community, and it's like the spiritual new agey community that I've come from and that I've transitioned out of. And there is so much like distortion around the term, and everyone's calling themselves like divine feminine, and it's so it's so far removed from what it actually means. And so what it actually means is divine feminine. I think of the mm, original feminine principle, the original feminine template that is humanized, or let's see if I can pronounce it right, anthropomorphized. Um,
Yeah, is it anthro or anthropomorphized? Yeah.
Anthropomorphized, I think it's called, yeah, in Mother Mary, for example, right? Like she is someone who actually I consider to be a divine feminine like carrying or living. It's like a living embodiment of the divine feminine blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
And so with the divine masculine principle,
that would be Yeshua, Jesus Christ. That would be a. That's why I love the Christian faith so much as well. It's very graspable. It's tangible. It's Jesus Christ is um, the embodiment of what divine masculine would look like.
yeah, tangible. That's a good. Unlike the nervous system and Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or like in other faiths, without sounding condescending, but if you look at like Buddhism, for example, when we talk about nirvana or stuff, I don't know too much about Buddhism, but it's a bit more, you can't really grasp it. It's sort of that state of nothingness and stuff. But in the Christian faith, you have this mythological, almost like an embodied myth, right? Through Jesus, like the whole Bible, everything is just really metaphysics, like how the universe actually works in a story, a prophecy, and that's so interesting to me. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's some videos I'm going to be doing further down the line from the study that I've done in the past 5-6 years. But there are things in the Bible that people just don't even appreciate what they're reading or understand, and it's not just the allegory aspect. It's actual, like, there are scientific things that modern day scientists have found out in discoveries in the last few decades that were written however long ago, because some of it's 2000, but some of it is way, way before that. And you're like, oh, how did they pinpoint that exact measurement and that exact thing? And they've written it. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's this crossover of science and what we now call faith or religion.
Yeah.
It's coming back full circle. There's a brilliant book, Luminous Web, very small book. It was on our ministry course reading list. I will send it to you later. The front cover is 4, 5, 6 essays of this crossover and this relationship between science and religion. Fascinating, really brilliant. Yeah,
Luminous Web. Maybe you can link it in the show
yeah,
notes for people
yeah,
listening as well. Yeah.
yeah. Really, it's worth a read, definitely. So, how do you speak about coming out of this? See, again, it's even the reason why I'm started doing these videos is because I have a devotion to Mary, and then there's this whole divine feminine thing, but then it gets quite new agey, and this whole new age thing is just like a giant pudding of just like what even is that? That
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
either people out of ignorance or people out of being a part of that, are lumping so much into this huge like pudding of what is called new age. But then there's spirituality is the same thing. That's just piling in all kinds of things that are related but are very different practices or very different
Yeah.
people or very different attitudes and principles. And this divine feminine, like especially, say like, I know you visited Glastonbury, so you will have seen it. Women floating around, flowers in their hair, and they've got a big floaty dress on, and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of makes it exclusive just for them. You have to be a woman in a floaty dress, and you definitely have to visit Glastonbury or Avebury or somewhere. And yeah, it's and there even the first lady, Reverend Laura, who was in my class, also a friend of mine. She actually said in that she did the very first discussion, and she actually said how she felt that she wasn't divine enough or wasn't feminine enough years ago, and yet she's most of the best part of her 30 years career has been in well-being, spirituality sort of stuff, women's groups, this and that. And I just thought, wow, what, you didn't even feel feminine enough? Really? Wow. But it's digging, these discussions are just trying to dig into something that is so loosey goosey.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Yeah. There's a lot of these terms bandied about, And I just think it's the same as it always is. We're all different fractals of God, and we're all going to have our own opinion. But I think it's so interesting having conversations like this, and some things will resonate with some people, and some won't. Well, then that's you getting to know your own part of your fractal, isn't it? I think if that makes sense.
That's very interesting. Very. I love these conversations because it's so important. Like we are. I love how Mel, my friend, calls it finding the golden thread of Christianity, for example, right? Like the golden thread. And through these conversations, I love the term relational mysticism, right? It's we are relating with each other, and that like through this relationality, we're actually finding God, or we're finding this deeper sense of unity within ourselves. So these conversations of, I almost see it as like scrubbing away anything like the clouds, right? Brushing away the clouds, or like the dirt that is actually obstructing the window, or like the clear sight to truth. And we need each other. We need to have these conversations, as you said, like in like esoteric circles, spirituality, like spiritual community, new age. It's all this huge pile, and it's like a fine line between like everyone saying, oh, this is just my own truth, and this is what I feel, and this is true for me, and this might be true for you. And I've grown way more careful with this. And this is why I love sort of that the like retracing the golden thread of Christianity, for example, because there is sort of an underlying truth, where we're not, it's not all just subjective. Like there is a bigger objective truth that we are yoked to, and this is where, for me, Christ comes in. This is like, ever since I really, really deepened my relationship and yoked my life to Christ, things started to, clear up by themselves, by themselves, yeah. And what you were describing, like women in these fancy dresses dancing and like portraying goddesses, and there's nothing wrong with this per se, but this is sort of the difference, what I'm feeling between my path at the moment and what I'm helping people to find and feel and embody, and the more new age spiritual path, which is, in the spiritual path, the new agey path, it's still about performance. It's still about, I don't feel worthy enough. I need to do X, Y, Z to get somewhere. I need to meditate to attain a certain level of consciousness, and then I'll be enlightened. Or I don't know, I need to this kind of crystal that helps me to embody this frequency or heal this kind of stuff. It's always more and more, and you have to do more. And at the core, it's always this performance of spirituality, and that's not what spirituality is about. Like spirituality is about this homecoming, about this remembering, and about, I love the phrase, letting yourself be found by Christ. Just letting yourself be loved. Um, do you feel the difference between seeking and trying to perform for love, and actually resting in what I call your identity as a child of God? Just resting in your human mess. Like, you're imperfect, I'm imperfect, we're all in this mess. I know you came on here a bit later, and you're like, oh, there's so much happening, and I'm like, yeah, it's totally fine. I've been tired this morning as well. And we rest in that, and we're like, oh, it's actually okay to be human. And then Christ finds us in this mess. Like, there's nothing you have to do to perform. Like, imagine Christ as in God as in the Father, being a child, and God is the Father, and you are the child, and you have to perform some kind of like magic tricks so the Father actually likes you and feeds you. It's like, I need to do this dance as a child, right? And then Father feeds me. Actually, that would be so weird, wouldn't it? Like, a father takes care of his child, no matter the circumstances, right? And that's more the relationship that I see as truthful, and that helps us, like, for me, coming more into this relationship, just resting in my identity as a child of God and developing my relationship with Christ. Coming into this helps me to just get rid of all this gunk and all this performance kind of stuff and like what I see in the new age spirituality kind of scene. There's so much confusion, like confusion. Everyone's you can even see it, like people practicing yoga and they have a Buddha statue and it's all mixed up, and like people don't even practice real yoga and they're just doing it for fun. It's all commercialized, and what we really need is we need to come back to like the real truth, like the heart of the golden thread, the ah, what it really is about, what life is really about.
It's it makes me always make when you're speaking. I have a thing about we're called human beings, but we're always human doings.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it comes back to that what you're talking about there is just being, just sitting, just sometimes just like, oh, just let me be, just like I just want to be, and that's just sitting here. Yeah, not
yeah,
like say going off to do the practical things of life or the distracting things of life or the fun things of life, but just like yeah, but there's a connection. Because you're already wired up. Like you just have to sit in that and just shut off and yeah.
exactly. And then it's really that delicate balance, which I think this is really the core of what I'm practicing at the moment in Mel and loads of people. I think it's finding the balance between, like, being has this connotation of, oh, I'm just gonna sit back and surrender and relax and everything's gonna happen, right? But that's not what being actually means, right? Like, being can be your mother and you're extremely busy and you're doing this and this and this and this, but you're actually resting in that's being, right? Like, being is not the opposite of doing, actually.
Yeah, no, I know what you. Yeah, I think there's that's where prayer and there is a thing that people don't. This is the thing. It's like signing yourself up for your mindfulness app on your phone, which reminds you however many times a day to stop and be mindful. Or like, oh, I go to my yoga class once a week, and I do. But there's no spiritual connection there. They think
Yeah,
that's doing a
yeah.
spiritual thing, but there's no surrender. There's no devotion. There's no practice or
Mm,
discipline, and that's I think the elements. Those few elements are the coming to the beingness. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, I love this. I want to say something to this because I had a realization yesterday. So I was actually doing my yoga practice outside because I also love yoga, and like especially for the stretching part, I just need to stretch.
it's
And so
needed. The body needs it, doesn't it?
yeah, it needs movement so much. Anyway, I was sitting outside on the balcony and doing my yoga exercises, and then it hit me. I'm like, for my entire life, growing up with my dad teaching me like Eckhart Tolle and like meditation and stuff, I always there's this talk about you have to be present, right? And meditation is about, I'm present. And then you walk somewhere and you're like, you take this deep breath and you're like, I'm present. And I realized presence to me has always been about performance. It's like I need to be present, like taking a deep breath and I want to be present. But that's not real presence. Like real presence, that was my revelation, comes through embodied safety. Like when we feel safe, all of the sudden presence reveals itself. It's almost like spaciousness. And that's what you're describing as real devotion. And that's what I realized is this is what it means to be resourced in Christ, resourced in Yeshua or Jesus. Because in Jesus, we find eternal safety. We find this eternal security in our relationship with Him. Like when we pray, and we are deeply immersed in prayer. This is something that doesn't make sense to the rational mind. But when you have a prayer practice, like you prayed before we started this, and I could drop into this. And if it's a real prayer and you can feel the Spirit moving, you're like, oh, this is like, first it starts in the Spirit, like Holy Spirit moving through you, and then it almost like permeates into the body. Boom. And that's when safety comes on board and when safety comes on board, all of a sudden we are present. And that needs to be distinguished between, oh, take a deep breath and I'm so present, I'm feeling everything. Like if you're not feeling safe, if your body doesn't feel safe and you're not in connection with spirit, you can't really be present. It's just a performance of trying to be present. Yeah, that was sort of my revelation. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, that makes complete sense. And actually, it's almost like I don't know, it's like the old sheep thing, isn't it? There's so many things. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should, and I shouldn't. And how many things? I think I've noticed over, like, I don't know, I would say a decade, but actually time has whipped by so much. I think it's probably because we're in 25 now. Yeah. So that's like, anyway, it's probably 2 decades. But this real, like, rise of yoga practice, and then it seemed to come in with crystals came in a lot, and healing started coming through. And more recently, like maybe 5 years ago, it was mindfulness was coming through big time, and then Tai Chi was coming through, and you see
Mm-hmm.
waves of these things, and I just think building. I just think, oh, that's fantastic, because people are engaging and doing something that is better for their body, which is going to be better for their mind. But it's almost frustrated me these last couple years that you're just like, okay, you guys, you're doing all these amazing things and you're investing your time and your money in it, but you're not quite. It's because it's trendy or it's groovy or there's an app, or you think you should be doing it because you're living out that performance of,
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I've got Bendy Wendy, my yoga teacher, and blah blah blah. It's like the keeping up with. I don't know if you have this in Germany. The keeping up with the Joneses. So the next door neighbours just had their
Yeah.
house repainted, and then you have to have yours done, and then the
The
husband
lawn.
a new
The
car.
lawn needs to be perfect.
Get a new car. Yeah, we're all as part of that performance, isn't it? Measuring up,
Yeah,
thinking, measuring
totally.
up with people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's always two sides to it, like I love the way you put it, because on one side it's beautiful. This is the evolution. Like,
yeah, it's
think
brilliant.
a
It's
few
fantastic.
years ago where everything was so rigid. Like we were steeped, like in Bavaria, Ireland. I don't know about Cornwall where you're from, but like Catholicism was really big and everything was very rigid, and people were, like the relationship between husband and wife. Not that everything was bad, but it was very rigid. Like in Germany, I think a couple 100 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, children would actually use the polite form to call their parents like that. So you don't have this in English, but we have sort of a polite form which brings in distance. Like, for example, back in the day, if you were a young person, you would call someone like "Sie." It's like a polite form, and it's so weird. Like it shows the distance and like the coldness. So bringing this full circle, there's such a evolution happening, such a beautiful evolution happening where the mindfulness comes in, the body comes in. A couple of years ago, trauma wasn't even a term that like people coming back from war and all people said to them is like, get it together, or they got a psychosis and then they got into like a hospital, right, hospitalized.
Yeah,
It's so weird, and now there's so much goodness happening. We need to see this. We need to appreciate this and acknowledge it. And at the same time, and this is where our black and white thinking needs to soften a little bit. I think this is really important. We need to, yes, acknowledge it, see it, and then also have these discussions and be like, oh, okay, so now we have these yoga practices and mindfulness practices. And now what's the next step? Because, obviously for many people they are doing it, but it's not really showing effect. Like it's nice, it's good, it's better than doing nothing. But, how can we actually get to the next level now in terms of like consciousness and evolution?
we're going way off the questions here, but this is fascinating. Oh, so with your move from what we call New Age into Catholicism and more Christian, mystical or otherwise, how does the divine feminine and the divine masculine play out for you in your life? Is it a thing on the back burner, or is it something quite prominent? like in a consideration in your day, sort of a thing?
Mm. Oh, there's so many ways I could answer this. So first and foremost, I want to say, to me, I would probably more call it like feminine and masculine archetypes, or like, to me, these are more like frequencies that I see playing out in people. And this is not necessarily 100% pertaining to like divine feminine, divine masculine. Just in general, there's like feminine frequency and masculine frequency, and the one would be more masculine, would be more um, solid, more practical, more to the point, and directive. And feminine would be more circular and more multidimensional, right, and non-linear. And so it's reflected in our brain as well. Left brain, masculine, logical, intellectual; right brain, creative, artistic, the senses, all that, right? And
Nurturing,
so,
I would think.
what's that?
Like a nurturing aspect as well in the feminine.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, masculine would be more the providing aspect, and feminine more the nurturing aspect. Which the one is, going out and hunting and like building stuff and providing, and like it's very similar, but the nurturing has a different quality. It's like
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
care of
It's all
children
part
and
of the love and care. Yeah.
love and care. It's more about the heart. The other one is more about like practical doing. So yeah, I see this playing out, and I would say, I know people have different opinions on this, but I'd say these frequencies really play out regardless of gender. Okay, like regardless of whether you're a woman or a man or anything in between. Like these frequencies, everyone has access to them, and depending on your unique templating, you'll play out more like feminine qualities or more masculine qualities, or you have sort of a very balanced template. To me, this is something that the soul comes in. Your soul comes in. I know this sounds very esoteric, but soul comes in with a certain templating and a certain like blueprint. And to me, I'm a very balanced type of person. I've been this way all my life. Like I have very distinct masculine qualities, I have very distinct feminine qualities, and they're sort of, I don't want to say 50-50, because that's the wrong way to just to put it, but they are very equal in a sense. Whereas other people, some people might be very much in their feminine from their blueprint, right? Like it's not that you balance your inner masculine and feminine and be like 50-50, and then they are balanced. It's more like, what is your soul trying to embody here in this life? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that's making me think when we talk about the just being, obviously we have to be doers because there's things that have to get done and we have to go to work and blah, blah, blah. But in the soul sense of the being, it's being in a state. And I would say certainly that prayer and practices like yoga and Tai Chi and different things, all of that is allowing that soul, call it, some people might want to call it their personality. And some of that is nurtured and some of that is really coming from that place of just being. I know from, say, um, the more I've come to understand, I only have come to understand in the last few years, or to know that I'm on the neurodivergent spectrums of ADHD and autism. And I've learned that a lot through my daughter's diagnosis, which then came to be my diagnosis, and then understanding my dad and my gran and generations before me, and how much I've masked to be socially acceptable and
Yeah,
to not look too mad, what other people would think is mad. But a lot of that is actually just my soul. It's just me. It's not even
that's
personality.
it.
It's
That's it,
like,
Grace.
yeah, and I've done stuff to I'm covered in psoriasis, and
Mm,
I think of that as being uncomfortable in my own skin because I've been masking and I've been blocking off and there's so many like me. I keep
yeah,
meeting
yeah,
people
yeah.
all the time that are in their adult years. We now have come to understand that we're on that sort of line. But it is just how your soul is. It's just in there going, just chill out and let me out.
Yeah, Yeah, that is so important. I think at the heart of any mystical tradition, whether it's Christian or Sufism or any other mystical tradition, it's always pointing back to your essence, like the real, like Meister Eckhart would call it the spark in the soul, right? The God spark. That's true spirituality. This is what we are reconnecting with. Like we're, in essence, we're not really disconnected from it, but then from a linear point of view, we are. And the thing is, like, society on one hand is programming us to show up in a certain way, and so we are trying to fit in to this box. Okay, doesn't fit. And then we look to spirituality or like new age kind of stuff, and we're like, oh, there's a new box, let me fit into this box, right? Like, balance the masculine and feminine energies and be like 50% masculine, 50% feminine. Like, no, it doesn't fit. Weird. And then you, like, it's really about coming into, what does your soul want in this life? What are you here to embody? What are you here? What are your gifts? What are you here to contribute to the kingdom, right? So yeah, this is so important, and this can look so different. Some people are here to really bring some feminine energy into this world, and
Well,
they
they're
might
all
have,
man or woman, and vice versa. Yeah.
yeah, and other people, they might be extreme. They have loads of masculine energy, and they're here to bring in that and to really anchor this. And some, like myself, are here to really find the delicate dance where both of them dance together. And yeah, it's really finding your spark. Yeah, what are you here to bring in for everyone listening? Yeah,
That makes me think that actually spiritual awakening is not awakening to God. It is to God ultimately, but in a different sense. It's awakening to actually who you are in the sense of what you're here to bring into the world, which comes back to our purpose, our soul purpose.
yeah,
I've heard that so many times
yeah.
before. I've never actually just that just seems so clear and obvious now.
So
Uh,
true. 100% with you. Yeah.
yeah. Because
And
otherwise you're just doing an ADHD masking thing. You're just like not
yeah,
you're
what
living
if
out some performance again.
your ADHD or any other condition is not something wrong with you? It's actually your soul being, trapped because you're not expressing yourself authentically, right?
Yeah. I actually think that as frustrating as I get over really stupid things, I can have the instant annoyance. And my husband will say to me, "You know that you're shouting at an inanimate object, don't you? The washing machine or whatever." Yeah, I know that. But it's in that split second. I can seem really angry, but actually it's gone in a split
Yeah.
second. And I'm off like singing to fairies or whatever 2 seconds later. And
Right.
actually, I
Okay.
think my supervisor, she taught me that everything, like even my car or this bottle, which is plastic, everything has been made from stuff from this planet. So you can think this is just a plastic bottle, that's got spirit in it in a different sense, but in the sense that everything that you see around you has come from planet Earth because we didn't just magic it up from nothing. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's so you can think I'm talking to an inanimate object, but actually that washing machine and me, we
They it's all relational. That's the thing.
are.
We have a relationship with everything around us. If that's our body, if that's other people, if that's romantic partners, if that's the sun, if that's God, if that's Jesus, we have, that's why I love the term like relation and mysticism, like finding God in relationality. Um, yeah, that's really life. It's all relational. How do you relate to not you, something different? Yeah,
And if we're beings of spirit, the spiritual awakening is actually awakening to yourself, to what you're supposed to bring to this world.
exactly. Yeah. It reminds me actually of something I heard in the podcast I'm listening to at the moment, Taylor Welch, Deep End podcast. And he said actually, um, if you take yourself out of the equation, then that's not real awakening. Like, that's not true faith or like union with God. Because they were talking about New Age and like the difference between New Age and like Christianity. And what were they saying? Like, the one guy, he was like, okay, so in the New Age, people are just like all self-centered and it's just self, right? And there's not really God, it's just the universe trying to sort of, you are controlling the universe through your thoughts, right? And in Christianity, it's more like you're giving it up to God. But then he was like, yeah, but at the same time, if you're like, oh, it's all God, and you're just surrendering and you're submitting to God, then there's something missing as well, like the human component, you know, like it's so important. Like you said, we're awakening to who we actually are here, like what we are actually here to bring, to contribute to this kingdom, right?
Oh, I'm so glad I got to speak to you today.
I love it. I really love it. Yeah.
Now, you kind of touched on the social thing, but how do you think it would look socially, culturally, family, work life if divine feminine, or I'm thinking the divine feminine and the masculine feminine was in balance, was at play as if it was something every day in our lives, as if everybody knew about it? Not just the new agey people that have heard this term and they've got their version of divine feminine. And yeah, I'm not sure the Catholics, with all the Mary devotion, would I certainly don't hear them using the term divine feminine, but if this was an everyday thing for us, that we all knew these terms,
Yeah.
how do you think society and family life and things would be?
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. Mm, maybe just altering that question, or like adding and saying, what if we all embodied this without, like, let's take away the term, and it doesn't matter about the term. It's like, what if people actually embodied that,
Yeah,
right? That, like, the essence of what this term means. That would be so beautiful. Like, let me tell you, Grace, this is it. Like, this is what me and Melanie, for example, in our program, this is what we are working towards, which is called union. To me, this is union. And union in the sense of, it starts with the family unit. That's why this proper relating between, like, masculine and feminine is so important, because like the family unit is like the foundation, the baseline of society. Children are getting programmed in families, and they are either getting programmed well and in a beneficial manner, so they contribute beautifully to society, or they get programmed and traumatized. And I'm not saying, like, trauma is part of life and it's almost like inevitable, no matter how good of a job you do. But if you have the baseline set right, and there's proper relating between, like, men and women, that would be so amazing. We would live in such a beautiful world. And, like, proper relating between men and women, and, like, divine feminine, divine masculine, call it however you want it. But um, that also brings us into right relationship with nature, right? And everything, like intergenerational, everything. That's where it comes down to. Yeah.
because I think this is the thing. So this, as I started saying at the beginning, or I did say, I quite often don't finish my point of what I'm trying to say, but it's divine feminine. So it's two words, and we put them together, and it means a certain thing. And I wanted to get to I like to get to the root of a thing. I like to get to
Yeah.
the nub of we're human beings, and we all need to communicate. So we have to have language and words, and then words label things, and then they categorize things, and but they're markers and they help us because it defines things. But then embodying, that's exactly it, isn't it? Now I think this is like the things that you were talking about, the work that you're doing and your combining of your past career experience with what you're hoping to do now it does come down to embodying, and I think that's a key part of our evolution now, is
Yeah.
to we know we have these words, they all mean different stuff to everybody, but it's pinpointing the essence and then embodying it to live it, because we are human doings and beings.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Grace. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. That's really, you've nailed it. Like, this is the essence. This is what it comes down to. Like, this is the next step of our evolution. We've mastered the mind now, and we know how the mind works and stuff. And the last bit of our evolution has been all about the mind. Like, medieval times and way before, it's been more about the body and evolving the body. This actually comes from like Steiner and his work. Like he has a whole evolution on humankind and talks very beautifully about this. And then the era that we've been in has been all about the mind, and now we are coming into more of an, I like the term felt sense. Have you ever heard about the term felt sense?
Yeah.
That's what it's really about. You know, with AI rising now, like all the terms, everything that you hear outwardly, intellectually spoken words, they don't mean anything anymore. Like back in the day, they've been almost like money. It's been backed up, and now it's no longer. And so now, like even words, because they can be just made by AI now this quick. You can write a book in like 10 minutes using AI. Boom. So what we need right now, that's the next step, is we need to come into our body, because in our body is where we can sense, locate, and we have this felt sense of truth. And this is what we need to train right now. Like you could also call it intuition. It's like, can we sense what's actually being spoken here underneath
Knowing
the
through
words?
reading instead of a knowing through the brain, knowing knowledge.
Exactly. Yeah, a gnosis, so to speak. Have you heard of the term gnosis?
Yeah.
Like it's a knowing, a wisdom almost. Richard Rudd, the founder of Gene Keys, he talks about the difference between wisdom and knowledge. And I love this. This is so important. Like knowledge is fine, but wisdom, like knowledge is intellect and stuff. And it's great and it's fun. But wisdom is like, if you look at nature, if you look at a rose blooming right behind you, I see roses. If you look at those, there's wisdom. And it doesn't make much sense to the brain, right? But it's like all like the rose knows when, like, how to grow its roots, how to grow the thorns, the colors, everything. That's like wisdom. It's in the DNA. Like it's stored in our body. Our body, I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, right? Our body knows what to do, and it's us getting off this like knowledge ride where we're like, oh, knowledge is power, and back into the body and accessing the wisdom that's held within our DNA actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, you say DNA. I think, and I don't know if like this is a thing that I've got from my gran or my great gran or something. This thing of it being in your bones. So
Mm.
even though your body physically regenerates, like was it your whole body regenerates all its parts at different rates, but by the
Yeah,
seventh, it's like
that's
really,
it.
again, there's something about in your bones. And I was watching a thing. Do you know the English astrologer Pam Gregory? And she just mentioned yesterday about she was saying, oh, it's all in you. Well, that's like Jesus saying the kingdom is in within you. It's like the kingdom of what? The kingdom of the wealth of everything, the knowledge, the wisdom, it's all in there. You just and the kingdom of heaven. I think I've again, since I was a young kid, or a teenager, I've had this thing about heaven being here on earth. Like
Yeah,
seek it. Religion, Christianity, is where you puts it as something that you're seeking to get to or acquire or achieve after death. You've been such a good girl and a good boy, and you've done all your everythings through the life that's where you get. And I just think no, like I do believe there's something after there because I don't think the soul dies, but I think it's about the kingdom is here now. It's live it now, create it now. It's not some far off thing. It is all in us.
right there with you again, Grace, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Next, bring it on.
Do you think we're seeing then a major re-emergence, or could be said re-engagement with these divine aspects, divine feminine,
Yeah, yeah.
masculine?
That's what I believe. And one of my teachers, Richard Rudd, founder of Gene Keys, he writes about this beautifully in his book, so eloquently. I love it. He writes in the 55th Gene Key, he writes about the dragonfly dream. And just very briefly, because there's so much to tell, but he writes about.
It's literally as thick as the Bible, isn't it?
Do you know the Gene Keys?
I haven't bought it. I've got a significant birthday coming up this summer, and I'm gonna invest. You cannot get a second hand copy for love nor money. I'm just gonna
Really?
go to a bookshop and buy the proper
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
I
people are.
can highly recommend it.
My Qigong teacher has it, and he does a thing each week. We do seasonal things, and he does like a little talk on the gene key, and we've
Oh,
just moved into
yeah,
gene key 20, I think he said last week. So, yeah, I'm getting
yeah,
into it luckily through him. He is my Qigong teacher, is my source of knowledge on the gene keys at the minute.
awesome. Yeah, it takes time. It's like your soul knows that there's a particular resonance, and then you're like, oh, I'm so drawn to it, and because it works through contemplation and it works non-linear in a non-linear way. It's not like you can just read the whole book and you get it. It's the same with the Bible, right? You kind of have to absorb it and let it mature and ripen within you. Anyway, so back to the point of the 55th gene key, the dragonfly's dream, I think it's called. And this is a mythic story. The dragonfly, I hope I'm able to bring this on correctly now. So the dragonfly lives as this little lava thing underneath the water. It's kind of a ugly little being. And then over time it matures, and then there's this breaking point. Like this is it's almost like a mythic analogy for humankind, right? So we are in our evolution, we are this kind of like lava thing, and then there comes a time when the DNA is ready of the dragonfly, and then through what Richard Rudd calls heavenly hydraulics, a process of heavenly hydraulics, boom, there's something happening. And all of a sudden, like the lava, the sun and the water, it splits open the back of that little being. And there's like the flies they come out through these heavenly, like um, this process of hydraulics, boom. And then it got wings, and then it starts flying as a dragonfly. Like there's a metamorphosis taking place, which is absolutely marvelous when you think it's like this tiny ugly being in the water, submerged, and all of a sudden it flies in the air as this beautiful, majestic dragonfly, right? If you see a dragonfly, it's almost like, whoa, beautiful,
Yeah,
the colors and stuff. And this is what's happening to humankind at the moment. Like I really believe in this. And even if you look at the Bible, like this is sort of referenced there as well, like that awakening, like the second coming of Christ. Like I think this is what we are experiencing in humanity. We're in the early stages at the moment, but the beautiful thing is, what I'm getting here to is this might happen quite quickly as well. Like I'm not saying like 10 years or so, but maybe a few 100 years, and humanity will be fully transformed. Maybe, I don't know. It's really difficult to say how long it really takes, but maybe like 200, 500 years, maybe 1,000 years. But humanity is in the process, and you can just look back 200 years ago. Like, really? Look back 20 years ago, we didn't have phones. Like nowadays, we're walking around bound to the phones, right? Like think about
in
this.
your hand.
Yeah, it's incredible, the transformation and the speed that we are already evolution that our evolution is at right now. The pace is incredible. So back to your question, I think this is really happening. The unification of those um, two polar opposites of the masculine and feminine, and they're coming together again. And this is what brings the healing. People call it the hieroskamos. That's the process that's taking place at the moment.
Yeah. And there's the Kairos and the Chronos. So Chronos is the real time, world time that we have, isn't it? And Kairos is
Mhm.
like a different time out of time. It's not really time. And this thing of speeding up, everything seems to be getting faster, moving
Yeah,
faster. And this
yeah,
is almost the Kairos taking over the Chronos. Yeah.
yeah.
If you don't know what that means, you have to look it up. I've had my supervisor going on about it. I don't mean you, Felix. I mean anyone watching this.
I will certainly look it up. Like
Mythology and everything, and we could be here all day.
yeah, yeah. I love learning about this stuff and like
Well,
immersing myself deeper into it. Yeah,
yeah, this is why you end up with like a ton of books. And I've read, you have to pick, because I can't read all these, but especially my dyslexia, I can't read everything enough. But it's all there, and I don't, and I get more and more books. Anyway, it's yeah, it's a fascinating path of learning. I had to confess that the last one I did with Mel, that it was only in that week, which is so weird because this is another thing about this divine feminine. So there was this divine feminine. There's this thing here, this like egg, and that's what that this mysterious sort of an egg here of what divine feminine is. And then there's patriarchy. Ugh! And it wasn't until, and I must have heard this before, but it just didn't seem to be, I don't know, it just wasn't on my radar at all. The thing of divine feminine, divine masculine. And then it came up for some reason last week, or just before I was talking to Mel, this divine masculine thing. And you think, oh, yeah, that makes absolute sense, because to me, it is really a case of us as in humanity, of having to find a balance. Everything has been to extremes. I think it's had to have been like that, because this is how we have comparison, and we learn from that. And this is how we're evolving in our understanding of things. You wouldn't understand white if you didn't have black. There's no polarity to understand
Yeah.
good and bad, that sort of a thing. And yet divine masculine just never even. And I think I just can't believe. I'm just like, really? How did I not even consider that to be a thing? Like, if I'm thinking about what we really need in humanity is coming back to a balance, then why would I not even consider that divine masculine is a part of that? It's a thing. I don't know. It's almost like I've just found a new word. Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Awesome.
Which I kind of find in all my study and all my understanding and all my ministry training and everything. I'm not even sure how that has happened. But anyway, if you're so now bringing in this divine masculine, if people that are listening to this and watching this and they want to go and do more exploration or come to more of an understanding, is there like a practice, a consideration, reading, or like what direction would you point them in, or what would you point them to?
Ooh, what a question. I like the practicality of it. There's a few more things that I want to add, and then I'll dive into the
Yeah.
practicality of it. So I find it so important from my experience, defining what people understand from the term or under the term of divine feminine, divine masculine. The first thing I would recommend people is to really de-pedestalize this term, because it's so, it seems so like divine feminine and like divine masculine. And there's this undertone. I don't know if that's for you as well, the case, but like in the spiritual
Yeah,
community, and
yeah. And
when
then
I first heard it,
back to us having language, but then language comes with feeling and perception and
yeah,
emotion.
yeah,
Actions, two words. Yeah.
yeah, like really, for me, it's first and foremost de-pedestalizing and bringing it down onto earth. So this means there's no perfect version of like the divine feminine that we are working towards, and we're gonna be these like goddesses, or like divine masculine gonna look like super heroic, like almost like an Achilles or something, or like Yeshua embodied 100%. No, we need to ground it down and see like the reality of it. So to me, like the embodiment of like divine feminine would be a woman in her femininity, like fully embodying that. In her motherhood, life might be messy. She might have 1, 2, 3 children, and just like anthropomorphizing, I can't pronounce it, like humanizing it, right? Bringing it down, humanizing the divine feminine. Okay, it means actually like fully being human, fully being divine. Boom. Same for men. Like, it's not this beautiful, probably like long hair and like Shiva figure and like masculine and beautiful, and like that's not your divine masculine. Your divine masculine might be a farmer, a farmer, a basic man, a hairdresser, and he's actually providing for his family. That to me means like he's embodying those qualities. And this might change as humanity evolves, okay? But right now, as we're speaking, this is important to define. Like, it looks very human. Like, there's so much humility that we need to come into and really embody and always come back to in our prayer, that we can actually see the divine um, in people, right? Like this, we need to train ourselves to see the divine in the ordinary, in the mundane life. So this ties actually nicely into the practical stuff. I would say, really, instead of trying any fancy practices, actually include it into your prayer life if you're interested in like the divine feminine or divine masculine. Um, include it into your prayer life, and maybe like pray and be like, God, please help me to come more into this embodiment of the divine feminine, or come more into the embodiment of the divine masculine, or show me what this means, or help me to see where I might have to do some healing, and help me, assist me, support me in this process. I find through prayer, so much is revealed, and we don't even have to do so much like fancy kind of practices or anything. I mean, there's loads we could do, but I think like just including it in our prayer life, and maybe even I'm such a big fan of like really including humility in our prayers, and be like, God, please humble me, keep me humble, help me to be humble. It always reminds me of reading The Interior Castle by Teresa of Avila. It's almost like a book of 200 pages of just like humility, 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 humility. It's almost, I see humility as almost like opening the lid. Like the more humble you are, the more open you are to like spirit inhabiting you as a vessel for God, right? And then working through you. Yeah, it's really about bringing the divine into the human life. And that's difficult. It's very difficult because, as you know, this life is very messy.
But I think ultimately that is just such a great starting point, because that's the baseline. But I do have, like, I have my little meditation chair. I have altar space and things. But and prayer doesn't even have to be. It
Yeah,
can
yeah,
be like I'm just driving on the way to work in my car. That's usually when I fit in praying the rosary. I don't have the same experience as when I'm sat on that chair and I'm in complete peace and solitude. But I'm still fully involved in driving. But I do, yeah, I have very deep connections sometimes, and that's just the baseline. You can be
yeah,
washing up, and it's just finding that connection with God is that thing of finding that connection with yourself, with your soul purpose. Your soul is your spirit is the connection. There's a bit of it all. I don't know. Kind of imagine if you had like a big, big bowl, is say up in what we call heaven, but really it's space. But if there's a physical, geographical space, if you need to imagine it like that, there's a big old bowl, and that's full of this stuff that's just like an amazing watery light, and we'll call that spirit or soul, and we'll call that God, say. And then there's threads of that coming down to every single living being, but especially to humans, because we're thinking and we're communicating, and it's just realizing, and that's going into, say, your heart space, say that's your thread of life connected, and that's kind of also like your old fashioned wired telephone. That's your phone line. And sitting in prayer, well, you're not even necessarily sitting. You could be stood at your thing washing up, and you're
absolutely.
just having a phone line conversation, which is why they talk about resonance and frequency and tuning a radio in. You've got to be on the right frequency. It's as simple as that, isn't it? It's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's the prayer is a good. The prayer is just conversation with God, I think.
that's it.
And if you need to think of that as Jesus, because Jesus was a real man that we see pictures of, and we think he was, again, it comes back to the nervous system. I find sometimes for people, maybe you need to be able to picture it in your mind. I
Yeah,
don't think pictures of Jesus and Mary are idol worship. You're going right off on the wrong direction if you're worshipping that picture, or if you're worshipping that picture, that's like worshipping celebrities on TV, I think. But it gives you a picture for some, I think, because we're material world. It helps to have a visual focus, even if it's something you're picturing in your own mind. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right there with you. It's always it's something we humans need to do, actually. Like, we need to humanize stuff. We need to put a form. Think of cartoons, for example, where I don't know, where there's like foxes that walk around, like Robin Hood. That's like a humanized fox. And that's a beautiful story that our mind can actually comprehend. as compared to having a fox speaking fox language, right? That we wouldn't understand anything, right?
Ah,
And ah,
what are you saying? What?
that's so funny. Anyway, like it's also going back to what we said. Those images help us to feel the essence behind it, the frequency, so to speak. You know, like the it's almost like attuning to the frequency of God, right? That's what we are doing through the the embodiment of Jesus. Like that's the closest thing that we can get in sort of the human form of God, right? So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Is there anything not mentioned here that you sense needs to be added that you would like to finish up on?
Thank you. Just really emphasizing again, because this is what I'm all about, that our connection, our relationship with God, spirituality in general, happens in the mundane, in the humanness of our life, right? And so it doesn't, like, if your spirituality takes you away from life, no matter how it looks like, there's something wrong. Like there's something wrong in that relationship. Our spirituality is supposed to bring us deeper into our humanness, into more compassion for other people, into more self-compassion. And if that's missing, we need to look at the relationship that's going on here between us and God. That's so important to me. I always love those Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart and Teresa of Avila, for example, because they embodied it in the human life, in the mundane. Like Meister Eckhart was a Dominican friar in the 14th century, and he was like, as a Dominican, they are sort of preachers, right? They are a preacher order, and they travel around a lot. So he wasn't living in a monastery, like he wasn't cloistered. And this is so nice because when we read his texts, we understand, oh man, this guy was traveling in carts and in like coaches back in the day, and maybe on horse or on foot, and it was arduous, those journeys. And still, he had this full blown connection with God going on, and he was speaking to people, and um, he had loads of responsibilities in Paris. I think he was kind of a big figure where he attained the title of Meister as well, which means master. Or Teresa of Avila, she founded many different monasteries, and they just did so much. And I find this is so helpful. I always go back to this because like when spirituality to me, coming from a more new age background, becomes about this meditation and this escape from life, it doesn't really help anything. Like if you're removing yourself, you're actually dissociating. And I love, this is what I love about Christian mysticism. It helps us to whoop, lean into life, into, the messiness, and like, oh, I need to do this and I need to do this, and there's so much going on. And then can I drop deeper, and how Meister Eckhart says, penetrate these things and find God there. Find God in this conversation, in the editing of the podcast later on, in the, I don't know, you stumble across something and not stumble, like you walk and then you fall and you stub your big toe. These kind of things are meant to bring us closer to God. Like life is always speaking to us. Yeah, just wanted to make this uh, like emphasize this point. God isn't found just in churches through pastors or in meditation practice. It's actually like every single thing that you experience is a way to bring you closer to God.
Sorry, that made me laugh because I was thinking about it the other day. There was a thing that it was a little like one of those shorts that someone put up on YouTube or Instagram Reels or whatever, and it's this woman, and I can't remember. It's not like she said, "Oh, the definition of," but it was some clever little short thing about the not the meaning of Jesus Christ, but how that word is like the word you use when you you stub your toe or you hit yourself with a hammer and you Jesus Christ. Which I think actually that would be blaspheming. Isn't that taking the Lord's name in vain? But actually, I mean, I'm terrible. I say that all the time. So, oh, Jesus, come on. Or
That's so funny. Yeah. The people I was living with in Ireland, they always said they didn't say Jesus purposefully. I think I didn't ask them, but they were always saying like "Jeekers." Something happened, and they were like "Jeekers" or "Jeez." Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, I say, "Geez, Louise." Ah, "Geez, Louise."
Jeez, I've heard that. Yeah.
Louise. Yeah, Holy Mary, Mother of God. I say that as well. Holy Mary, Mother of God. Where the hell have I put that thing?
I do that sometimes. It needs to be something extremely, I don't know, like painting the windows. I remember painting the wall, and something happened, and I was like, I think there was so much dirt, and I saw it, and I was like, Heilige Mutter Maria Gottes, which is German for Holy Mother Mary of God. Holy Mary, Mother of God.
My supervisor, she says, "Oh, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, and don't forget the donkey."
That's funny. Yeah.
Oh, this has been so wonderful. I've loved talking to you, but I've really loved the way you've added bits to the question. Let me just add this bit to the question. You're like, yeah, add it. Brilliant. You've just filled it out so wonderfully. And thank you so much
Thank
for
you. Yeah.
answering the questions and bringing, yeah, like your sense of it. It's fantastic. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your lovely questions.
You are the first male that we've had on here. Wonderful. Is there anything else that you want to, let people know about, things that you
Mhm.
do or things that are coming up for you that are key to share?
Yeah. Thank you. So there's a couple of things, like if anyone listening here is interested, diving deeper into my work or into the work with Melanie, um, go to our Instagram. It's at Felix _Wittmann_. It's going to be linked down below anyway, or Melanie's account. And there's a couple of things, like we are in the birth process at the moment of something very, very big. And there's going to be loads of beautiful communal things, like free stuff that you can just attend. Then there is going to be our signature program, which is called The Rose and the Sword, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be a 9-month program, helping people to really deepen in their truthful service to love, very practical, some Christian theology as well, some nervous system stuff, trauma stuff, loads of relationality, space where you can connect with other people and really dive deeper and like train and like have some space where you're seen, where you can speak, where you can maybe also facilitate. Like it's going to be a huge body of work for 9 months. So that's happening. It's probably we're probably going to launch it sort of mid-August, early August, around that time. There's a few masterclasses that are coming, all related to very similar topics that we talked about, just diving a little deeper and a bit more specific and nuanced. You can work with me one-on-one if you're interested. I'm a somatic coach, trauma-informed somatic coach with a big spiritual and like approach and like faith-based approach. Yeah, usually for 3 months. So if you're interested in that, just send me a message. That's always the best way to reach out to me on Instagram. And
That's
yeah,
what
there's
be done online, one on one. You don't have to be going to Germany.
that's
Or
right. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's online. Yeah, via Zoom, usually 90 minutes, my sessions, 75 to 90 minutes. Yeah. And there's a few other stuff that I'll be launching very soon that I don't want to talk about yet. So just stay tuned. Go to my Instagram, and you'll find everything there.
I do a lot of funeral work as a celebrant and a sacred celebrant, and so for the online guys who are trained going through the ministry program with One Spirit, I went as guest speaker when they were working on their funeral semester. And I was really moved to say it was something that, like, sometimes I just have stuff come to me and I have to write it down. And I knew that this was something I had to share with that group. And I don't have it to hand, but it's this just a paragraph about the fact of don't underestimate what can be done online. Being in the physical is amazing, and you it's so rich, and you can get so much from that. But I was on the group that we were supposed to meet face to face all the time, but because we couldn't, but at the very beginning of 2020, because of the pandemic, there were two residentials that we had to do online. And I realised how powerful then getting to meet in person and do similar things, exercises and practices and lessons, how powerful actually how much we had got out of the online. And then it started me to thinking about that, and how actually when you consider that everything, so we are physical beings, and we have, everything is like hard, appears to be hard around us, material world. In actual fact, it is all energy and frequency and resonance. It's atoms and cell, it's all moving, even the hard stuff. And that is all on wavelength and like electricity and stuff. So what is your Wi-Fi? You're talking through a computer, an iPad that is powered by electricity through Wi-Fi, which is this magical thing like your nervous system that goes through the ether. And I think that's like, it comes back to that. We're all just energy and frequency. So yeah, that made me realize, never underestimate the power of what you can do through and communicate through a screen and experience even bodily through a screen.
Yeah.
I suppose that's what movies are, aren't they? You can sit and be watching this big screen that's being powered by electric, but you can be moved so emotionally by the story and the acting and the music and I think it's the same thing for doing online work, like one-to-one and group stuff. It can be just as
right there with you. Yeah, beautifully said. Like, don't underestimate the power of online work. I would still, to be very honest, prefer like in-person work, because there's just a bit more that you can do, and it's more potent in some sense. But then again, it's also lovely to speak with people around the whole world. Like, it's so amazing. Just think of all of our ancestors just seeing what we're actually doing around the globe. They'd be like, what the heck is happening? Like, people connecting from all over the world, all kind of nations coming together, and there's something to that as well. So
I think it's the wonder and the joy of the accessibility. That somebody could be in another country and they don't have to afford to fly to you and have accommodation, and it's not practical to do that over weeks. But if they were watching this and they felt a real draw to you and they needed some help with something, then they can do that just online. It's they can still have access. It's it's an amazing thing.
definitely amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
One more thing, Grace.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes. Oh, thank you.
Just something I wanted to mention, because it also pertains to you. I have a podcast called The Holy Human. Interesting, right? The holy and the human coming together. And I'm going into the next season at the moment. I'm preparing, and I might want to talk to you there, and maybe invite Mel and have sort of a conversation among the three of us.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Cool. Yeah.
When you said holy human, I'm thinking like not like one of those holy bits of cheese. A holy human. Holy human. I'm definitely going to be tuning in for that. Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah. I'd love to have you on our podcast.
And for everyone watching this, thank you very much for sticking with it. This has been another long one, but I think really worth it. So amazing. Thank you. And there are lots more in this series. They're all linked in a playlist. So yeah, do dig into that as well. Thank you so much, Felix. This has been fantastic, amazing morning. Yeah. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.